Hey everybody, welcome to another Cricut Craft tutorial. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos all the time, so make sure you hit that bell icon. And the next video we post is going to be our giveaway, so make sure you subscribe because it's going to be a really good one. Today we're going to learn how to make these gorgeous cardstock sunflowers. You can find the template for these on my Etsy store, which is linked below. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to show you guys how to do this right from the beginning after downloading this out of my Etsy store. So you'll get a compressed zip file, which will contain your digital download welcome. It just gives you some directions on how to download, but I'm just going to show you how to do that. It's super easy. Each computer may be just a little bit different, but it's the same general idea. You're going to select Sunflower 1, which contains the petals in the center. And you're going to select extract up here, or you can click on it and you may have down in this area, depending on your computer, some of them will have extract. I use just one that came with my computer, so all I have to do is click extract and it will ask me where I want to extract it to. So I'm going to just extract it to my Cricut folder. So we don't need this anymore, we can get rid of it. I have previously uploaded it, I'll just delete that so that we can watch it from the very beginning. So I'm going to click upload file, I'm going to browse, and I'm going to go to my Cricut folder, which is on my desktop, and then all I'm going to do is scroll down until I find Sunflower 1. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, it's not opening correctly, because you have to open these with like vector software like an Inkscape or Adobe, or in your cutting software. It's silly, it opens with Chrome and Chrome doesn't open them correctly. So you'll see here, here's your sunflower file. So we're going to go ahead and save this. Now if you wanted to tag it so that you can search it later, that's fine. I just don't. So we're going to go ahead and save. Now it does take a second just because these files are a little bit bigger than, if you were to clean something up. So let's go ahead and insert the image. And again, this part does take a bit just because it is, again, a little bit larger file. So you may have a little slow, especially if your internet's a little bit slow. So with this file, I do have a little instruction here. And let me see if I can make this way bigger so that you guys can see this. Let's see what 15 does. If nothing else, I'll zoom in for you. So let me zoom in. It's going to be a little slow. So you'll see it says to change the horizontal line from cut to score and attach all. And then we just need to delete this little guy. So let me zoom back out. I couldn't get that guy to go real big. I don't know what its problem was. So let's just put this back so we can see it on our screen a little bit better. So first thing that we need to do is ungroup. So we're going to ungroup everything. And then what you have to do is ungroup these two pieces. So we'll ungroup that and then delete this brown square. We don't need it. But this right here is what we need to change this horizontal line. So what I like to do is I will go ahead and open my shapes and my score line. And I will turn my score line by using that little arrow, and I will get it nice and straight and then pull it up to this. And I use my cut line that I put on there for you guys as a template to where my score line is going to go. You don't want your score line going like too far over the edge. Just a little bit is fine, but you don't want it super long because you're going to cut other things and your score line is going to mess with that. So next thing we have to do is get rid of this cut line, and all we're going to do is just click the eyeball. That just makes it disappear. It won't cut it, but now we have a score line. I want you to select both of these pieces, the score line and the rectangle with all the lines, and click attach. That's just going to keep the score line right where you want it. And now, while we have this guy selected, I'm going to duplicate him. We need him 8 times in order to do the center. So just go ahead and make him a couple times. I like to do it this way. Sometimes it's just a little bit easier. So I'll duplicate him 4 times. And again, my design space is just running just a hair slow this morning. So it may run slow for you as well. Don't panic. It's just design space. So once that 4th one pops up, if it ever decides to, I select all of them by just drawing a square around all of them, and I just click duplicate again, and that's going to give me another 4, so I don't have to click duplicate a ton. It just takes a minute. Again, it's a little bit slow. So we'll let that go ahead over there. Maybe, maybe not. Oh, there they go. They're popping up now. But you can see they're just being a little bit slower, missing some cut lines. They'll come up. They'll all show up eventually. This piece, which is just our octagon, you only need one of him because that's your base for building your sunflower. And then little petal and big petal. You need 8 little petals. So we'll go ahead and duplicate the 8 little petals. These will take a little bit less time to duplicate just because they are a smaller file. They don't have as many cut lines. This guy, we're just going to, again, select the 4 of them, but make sure you don't select anything else. And we'll just duplicate them one more time. And then this guy, we actually need 16. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate him 4 times. I just find this way a little bit quicker and easier. So we're going to duplicate him 4 times. Click it once, that makes 8. Click it twice, that makes 12. And a 3rd time makes 16. Now, with your design space, you can still see that some of these lines haven't shown up, and I don't know exactly why they have not. So what we're going to do, I want to go ahead and click Make It, and I want to look at it and make sure that they are going to show when we go to the cutting. The center pieces, yeah, see, this is what happens if you screw it up. Apparently there's something going on with design space this morning, so let's go ahead and just cancel this out, and we're going to go back in. And I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, you can see my stuff's wiggling around a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and delete the ones that look like they're missing some cuts in them. And we may actually need to make sure that these are attached as well. I'm not sure what Design Space wants to do today. So we're going to go ahead and make sure all of our flowers are attached. So let's go ahead and delete all of the extras that we had. And just keep one real quick so we can just attach them, because apparently for some reason, again, Design Space is just, I don't know what it's doing. It has its moments. So let's go ahead again. We're just going to go ahead and duplicate this guy 4 times. Just do the same thing again. A lot of people complain Design Space goes down a lot, and you're not wrong. It does. So we'll go ahead and again just duplicate this guy twice. And apparently it just wanted to duplicate. See, and this is why Design Space and I don't get along. So we'll just end up doing this way. So we have 5, 6, 7, and 8. Hopefully this will let me duplicate all 4 at once, because I have to get 16 of these. So let's go ahead and click Duplicate. And it did let me do all 4 at once. So we can do that. Makes 8. That makes 12 and 16. So let's go back up to this guy that was giving us some problems. I'm going to go ahead and move them around a little bit, just so maybe we can see better when they pop out. And we'll just duplicate 1 at a time. But again, you do need 8 of these centerpieces, no matter which size you make your file. Okay, that one looks like it has all its lines. So there's 5. There's 6. Here is 7, and here is 8. Okay, now that they've done that correctly, so I do also want to mention to you guys that this is already pre-sized to do the smaller one that I created in the beginning of the video. If for some reason you want to make a giant sunflower, which you can do with this file, make a square and select everything. It doesn't matter if you've duplicated yet or not. Select the whole entire thing, and you want to resize everything at the same time. If you don't, things are going to be off-sized. So you can just spread it out, make it as big as you want, and then you can check your petal sizes to see if they're right. But don't resize like one piece and not the others, because it won't come out right. I'm going to undo this because I don't want to make a big one. I don't have enough paper right now. So we're just going to click undo until it's back to the size that it's supposed to be for our design. We're ready to click Make It. This may take a moment. Design Space has been slow, so let's go ahead and click Make It. And it's going to sort our mats into colors. So remember that the white mat is actually brown. I just do that so you guys can see the slices better. And remember that obviously we have the yellow mat. So the first thing that I want to do, because I've used my brown to pre-cut this before, so I don't have a lot of room on the one spot to cut. So I have to put my paper in a certain way. So I want to move these just down under the other ones, because that way they'll make sure they're not cutting into a spot that I've already cut before. So I just don't want them to get messed up. So we'll just move them. And all you have to do to move anything on your mat, just click it and you can slide it around and move it and then just let go. And then this is our yellow mat. You can see we've got all our slices and then all of our little pieces. So let's go ahead and load the mat, and then we can get ready to cut, and I'll show you guys how to put in your scoring tool. We're going to load our scoring stylus, which is just the little guy with the metal tip. Just load it like you load a pen. A, open it, set it in. You don't press this one in, and just lock it. We're going to go over back to our screen, click continue. And I loaded my brown paper onto my blue mat. And we're just going to go ahead and click load. And I just want to make sure that little corner is stuck down. It's not very stuck down, so before I go, I'm actually just going to tear that off because it's going to get caught, and I don't want that to happen because I've used this before, so I just want to make sure that that part doesn't get caught in the rollers or when it's going. So it'll score first, and you'll see it press down and score. I have this set to cardstock because this is just a little bit heavier than some of the other types of papers I've used. So I do set that to cardstock. The scoring doesn't take very long. The cutting, on the other hand, takes quite a while, just because it has all the little slits in it. So I'm going to let you guys watch it score, and then we'll speed up the cutting, and then we can cut out our yellow flowers. So should almost be done. This should be its last score line. And then you'll see it's going to go ahead and start cutting. Like I said, this does take a while just because of all of those little tiny lines. So it's going to cut out a square, or rectangle in this case, and then it is going to slice, 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 slice. So it's going to take a while. So let's just go ahead and speed this up. Ready to do the yellow. At this point we can remove the scoring tool because we don't really need it. And let's go ahead and load the mat. And again, this will probably take a little while to cut. It is cutting 16 big, 8 small, and the octagon, plus all the slices in it. So go ahead and click the Cricut button to go, and I'll speed up this cut for you as well. So in case you guys haven't seen some of my other videos, I just want to show you a trick to removing your cardstock. So I'm just going to remove the big part first. And some of the little ones might come off with it because this isn't a super sticky mat, but no, they're pretty good. So we'll just get that out of the way. So I don't want to curl these. So all I do is I flip my mat upside down. Let me make sure you guys can see this. And as you can see, all I do is peel the mat away from the petals, and they just sort of fall off because my mat's not super sticky. But even if it was super sticky, you just do this where you flip your mat over and you peel your mat away from your petals versus your petals away from your mat. So let me get these all off of the mat, and then we'll come back and I'll show you guys how to assemble. We are ready to assemble. So we have our 16 big and our 8 small, our octagon, and then our centerpieces. So the first thing that we need to do is we're going to actually fold our pieces just a little bit, and I don't know how well you guys can see this, but you're just going to fold them just a little above where your cut is. You don't have to fold too much, just to give them a little bit of a shape to them. So all I usually do is I just grab them by the sides, and I just do this for all of them. And this part is pretty quick, so you just have to do it, you know, just kind of give them all a little bit of shape. You could use your scoring tool if you wanted to on this. I just find this to go pretty quick, so it doesn't take very long. And you just have to give them a quick squeeze, nothing too crazy or too intense, just a quick squeeze to give them a little shape. And like you can see, all I do is I just squeeze them on either side of the slice, and then it just automatically gives them a little bit of a fold. So we're going to do that for all of them. Right now it doesn't matter if you mix up your sizes, because you're gonna, when we assemble them so that they have a little curve to them, you'll see that you'll put them in their little sizes then. So we'll get all of these done. If you wanted to use your scoring tool, you could either do it both outside of the machine, where you just use it by hand. I've shown you that in some other videos. Or you could actually add the score line right above your slice line if you wanted to. Then you wouldn't have to remove your scoring tool from when you did your center. It's just a personal preference thing. I didn't do that on this one. I don't typically do it on my flowers. I think they get a little more organic looking if you do them by hand. So now that we've gotten them all kind of folded, you want to crisscross them. Let's see if I can get a good shot of this. So you have the slice and you want to crisscross them a little bit. We're going to put a little hot melt glue right on the little slit piece. So just on one side of it, just a little bit. You don't have to do a ton. A little dab will do you on this. So take your little slit and you can see we got a little hot melt glue. And all you're going to do is just cross it over. Doesn't have to completely cross. They don't all have to be exactly the same. But when you do that, you're going to end up with like a little cup of a petal. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but it's a little bit of a cup. So you're going to do that to all of your petals. This part also doesn't take too terribly long, but you do need to hold your petal for just a moment when you do this. So let's make sure that we're holding that petal. And this is where I'll start to split them up by size a little bit. So I'll put my big ones on one spot and I'll put my smaller ones in another spot. So that way when you go to place them on your octagon, you're not having to try to figure out if they're the big petal or the little petal. So I won't make you guys watch me do all of these because it's going to take a few minutes. So when we come back, we'll be ready to assemble. But again, just want to show you a little bit of hot melt glue right there. Crisscross them and just hold for a second and it should make you a little cuppy petal. Now that we have all of our petals made, all we need to do is line them up on our octagon. The reason we use the octagon is because it's a lot easier to make these even. So you just want to line up one of your petals with one of your flat sides. So we just put a little bit of glue right here on the bottom. Doesn't have to be a lot, and actually I don't recommend putting a lot because you don't want it to glob out everywhere. And then just place your petal just kind of in the center of that line, like that flat side. And you're going to do that all the way around with your big petals. I should have said that. You definitely want to use your big petals because this is the bottom row. So we just want to go around, and all we're going to do is, just like I said, dab of glue. Doesn't have to be a lot, just a little does you. Center it with your flat spot, and all you do is just press it down and just move on to your next petal. And again, center it best you can. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to try to make sure that they're fairly centered. If they're not, they'll come off kind of weird when you're done. So you just want to make sure it's fairly centered on your dot, or on your flat line. And you're going to do this for 8, each of the 8 sides of your octagon. And then we're going to take, once we finish these, 8 sides of your octagon. This is our last one for this set, so we'll stick this one down. So then our next set of big petals, you're going to do all your big petals first. So your next set of the big petals, you do the same thing. You're going to put a little bit of glue right here on your petal, and you're actually going to place these ones right in between the other set of big petals. And mine tend to get a little bit of that hot melt glue string on them, so they do sometimes stick together. But you just want to sort of line them up so they're fairly centered in between your other petals. I like to kind of match them up based on like right here, this part where you see. And I usually will put these in just a little bit further into the center than the first set of petals. And I tend to accidentally glue this to my table every time I do this. You see there's a little bit of like hot melt glue that kind of sticks out. I put a little too much on those. So you definitely don't need a lot of hot melt glue to do this. But again, you're just going to go around just in a spiral, just kind of lining them up in between each of your other petals. And this takes 16, so there's 8 to each layer. And you'll see, you can start seeing really what it's going to look like. It's a pretty simple project, but it's really cute when it's all done. And these are great because you can use them for all kinds of things. So you can see here's like our big petals, and it's kind of messy looking right now, but you'll see that once we get it, the next set of petals on and the center on, it looks really, really nice. So then you need your 8 small petals. And you're just going to do that exact same thing. Little tiny dab of glue, and then put them in between the big petals. Little tiny dab of glue in between the second row of big petals, I should say. So they'll line up basically with your first row of big petals. And again, these do not take a lot of glue, so I usually just use a little dot and then I press them down. And try not to, that one kind of slid a little bit. That's okay. We'll just call it nature. And slide that one in. And again, if it's not 100% perfect, it's fine. It's a flower. I mean, flowers in nature aren't, you know, 100% lined up either. I did slide a little bit on one of them when I put the second row of petals in, so it's a little bit off, but it's okay. Nobody will notice. This is actually really a pretty quick project to do as far as 3D flowers go. Obviously, this one is a little bit smaller, but you could take the SVG that you guys downloaded from Etsy store, and you can expand it to make it larger. So if you wanted to make like a giant one, you absolutely 100% could. So here is our second row of petals, and you can see now you're starting to really see how that sunflower is coming together. So the next thing we have to do are our brown pieces, and I said, remember, you need 8. Sometimes you may need less. It's just going to kind of depend on how much of this you're going to need to cover up this center part. So I'll usually do like 4 and just see how far I'm going. So remember, we scored these with that score line that I had you guys insert instead of that cut line. So all I do is I just sort of press them, and they'll start to press on that score line. And all I do is just do that to each of them. So you're just going to flatten them so that they are in half, and you'll see that your little cut slits are giving you kind of a cool, I don't know how well you guys can see that, but they're, once we roll them, they're gonna fan out a little bit, and you can always fan them out more if you want to once you've got it all put together. I usually don't like to. I like a tighter look to this, but it's all up to you. So I'm gonna do 4 of these really quick and show you how to do them. So the first thing we do is we take our little dude, and all I do is I use my fingers and I just roll him really tight. I'll usually just roll him, and then I'll take it and just roll it. And you want to try to keep your top and your bottom even. So I put it between my fingers like this, and then I just push him like through my fingers like this, and then I just roll him. And you'll see as we go around that he creates this little like spiral. And so all I do is I take a little dab of glue and I put it just under the little edge here, and then I push it down, and you're just gonna hold that for a second or 2. Don't worry about the fact that, like, I know we fold it in half and you've got this like weird little like flappy. Once we put the next couple layers on, that flappy won't matter. So I don't usually glue the flap down. So then all I do is I just take another little dab of glue, and again, little will do you on this because it's a really small piece. So a little tiny dab of glue, and then I take my second one and I line it up with my first, just like that. And I hold it there for just a second so that the glue can adhere, and let it get all nice and, you know, dry. And then all I do is the same thing. I put it between my fingers, just like this, and I just roll it. And I do that so that your top and the bottom, oops, and sometimes you drop it, so that the top and the bottom stay even, so that you don't have like a weird wonky like roll that doesn't totally go together. So we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing. A little dab of glue, just a tiny one, doesn't need a lot, and hold it down. Careful not to burn your fingers. The glue does leak out, like you can see it's leaking out a little bit. Just be careful, watch your fingers. And then, I don't know how well you guys can see, but see how it doesn't quite like like even up. Like, I don't know if it's gonna focus on this for you guys, but it's like not even. That's totally okay. You won't even notice it. It just makes it a little easier to roll if you don't try to keep that like even. But see, little dab of glue, and then take your other piece and I just lay it down. Again, just even it with the other one. Hold it for a moment and then start your roll. You'll notice that as you get a little bit bigger with each of your center pieces that it takes way less time to roll them because you're obviously rolling them into a bigger roll and they won't go around as many times. Usually by the time you get to number 8, it like doesn't even roll the whole way around. The last 2 I think only take half the roll. But this will give you an idea kind of where we're going with this. You see how it's going to create the center. I definitely need more because it's not covering that whole center piece yet. So we're going to keep going. I'll do this all off camera now that you've seen it done a few times. When we come back, we'll show you how to attach the center. So we're ready to attach the center. As you can see, it's just kind of a mess on the bottom, but that's okay because this is the only part we care that looks pretty good. I do have a couple little dabs of hot melt glue. I will pick those off later. They're just little strings. But all I do is I just put quite a bit of hot melt glue on this because partially it's going to hold all your roll together, and then also it's going to help hold your roll to the flower itself. So I like to put quite a bit of glue on there, and then all I do is I just take my flower and I put my little cinnamon roll, as I call it, into the center and I press it. And I do that mostly to make sure that that roll is all that glue is in the roll, so it's going to hold all those pieces on, and then also to help press it to the flower. And you can see how it pretty much covers up all of the middle. That's basically the only thing you want. This one actually only ended up being 7 of the little pieces. Sometimes it depends on how tight you roll it, and also it depends on how big your center ends up being. And there's no like formula for it. It just depends on how big you make your flowers, things like that. So this is our finished product. Again, you can get this template on my Etsy store. The link is below. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Don't forget that you need 16 large, 8 of the small, and usually 8 of the center. I always cut 8. If you needed, if you got one extra, no big deal. They're pretty small. I'll save it for another flower center perhaps. If you guys are looking for any tutorials, please let me know that down in the comments. I'm always happy to answer those for you. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos all the time, so make sure you click that bell icon. And I hope you guys have a great day.